guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman's historical vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways, call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us on another magnificent Monday around the table. Some of the nights we're going to be talking about the good things at Cayman Enterprise City. 1 p.m. we get a chance to have a different discussion about our climate policy. As we invite you to be a part of a discussion, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email Talk Today at candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us as we invite you to be a part of a discussion in the studio. Mr. Charlie Kirkconnell, the CEO of Cayman Enterprise today. Charlie, before we introduce you, good colleagues, man, good afternoon to you.
Oh, thanks for having us back. Good afternoon to you as well.
Always a pleasure, man. I sincerely, mean that when I say it. It's incredible to see the strides you're making, the success, but not just the opportunities for the wider community, but what it does in positioning Cayman. So, congrats, man.
Thanks.
And Mr. Ali from our good afternoon.
Afternoon.
How are you, sir?
Good.
I was thinking I could look and read what was presented as as intro for you. I could ask you, and then Mr. Ryan Watson to do the same. How would Ali introduce Ali to the public in his role only as the CTO at Cayman Enterprise City? I don't want to hear about his days of the GQ model, his finesse on the runway as a bodybuilder, his prowess as a athlete. None of those things. Just.
Yeah, well, that my twin is certainly getting me into trouble.
That night.
I'm a professional geek. Okay, that's what I do. Happy to be with Cayman Enterprise City and looking after our technology aspects and also our program that we came to talk to you about today.
All right, and thank you for saying that. I was hoping that you would somehow put that in there so that people would appreciate that my perspective as a friend, as a brother, just looking from a distance, your acumen for technology, your just passion, and you use the word geek, and many of us hear that word and it has a negative connotation. Thank you for saying it because it's going to bring the power and prestige that it deserves, right?
Gotta own it.
And you do. Technology drives the world. whether we want to accept it or not, whether you like me and pretend you don't like it, but you just love it. Now we the human need to be the drivers and not let it, master us. And this is where that knowledge comes in, where that comfort comes in, where we become not just competent and comfortable with it, but we start to appreciate that it must do what it's supposed to do because we're telling it to do it. Unlike the dog that is on train, it's going to bark unless you remind the dog who's master. And some people might hear that word and do it. So thank you for being a professional geek, man.
No problem.
All right. Well, Mr. Watson, that's a hard act to follow, my friend. I feel bad for you. Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, yeah.
No, but Brave Software, I've had a couple of from times past. A few people, I say, hey, I had this guy on. Here's this thing. Check it out. And they were amazed, not just at its functionality, its ease, but the fact that, wow, this hasn't taken the world by storm. It's better than, and I don't mean to, how you say, malign some of the bigger ones, but I don't like those ones. Those ones tell me what I'm supposed to do as opposed to doing what I tell it. What makes Brave better, different, in your mind, should be the choice?
Sure. So for anyone who doesn't know, Brave is a web browser. But the company is kind of a privacy-focused company, and we build a suite of software. So we actually have a search engine that we've built that doesn't track users. We have a web browser that doesn't track users, and it blocks ads trackers across the web. That's kind of Brave's biggest unique selling point, and I'd say check it out, brave.com. It's completely free. And yeah, so that's what kind of makes it different, and we're kind of on track for about 60 million users now. So we are growing, and we've been in the enterprise city since 2017, so everything's going well there. And yeah.
And the reason why I wanted to ask you is that, okay, you had 60 million. We're 8 billion people in the world, and that's still a significant number of people. But the more that we think of the impact of privacy, with the greatest respect, you go to the clothing store, you try on, you don't need to be unclothed, if I can put it that word, not naked, but you still want that privacy. You want the door to shut. You don't expect this door to have a security camera in there. That's normal. You're at home, you don't want someone peeping in your windows. But we take for granted, we're online, we're doing something, not only someone nefarious activity, but even the vendor that you've contracted, even people around. There's sometimes you can lose a lot of things without even realize you've lost it.
Yeah.
And it compromises you. You're then being monetized at someone's expense, right?
Yeah, and especially if you need private websites like for domestic violence or anything like that. Brave has innovated a new feature called forgetful browsing, and it's something we're trying to bring in as a standard across the web, which is where a website can ask you, would you like us to forget you? And so, like, as I said, some domestic violence websites and stuff like that are the first ones to start using that, and we're actually rolling that out in the next couple of weeks. And it's cool to be on the privacy front and on the technology front, forefront of this stuff. And
some, again, even in law enforcement, we say, well, that's not good, because if we need to come in to check your browser history, we can't. Well, they probably can, but for others, that sense of safety and security, you went to look for something because of concern for your safety, or maybe you just want to clarify. Why should this machine be able to dictate whether you can or cannot be forgotten, whether if you don't agree to their terms and conditions, well, so bad, you can't get in. Right. We need to sort of consider that, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
All right. Well, as we talk more about the Cayman sort of Computer Science Society, Charlie, every week almost it seems like something great and new and wonderful is happening at CEC. Any new things you guys up to?
Yeah, so, and I agree with you. It seems like every week there's something new that we're working on. And while at times it can be a little bit overwhelming because we struggle with capacity to get stuff done, we never turn down an opportunity, or we never see an opportunity that we think is important that we say, okay, well, that can wait. Or maybe we'll get to that in a year or anything like that. If it's something that needs to be done, we do it, and we figure out how to get it done afterwards. Because we just don't like to miss opportunities to make a difference. So a couple of things that I'd like to highlight that are new for us. A few things that are happening over the next few weeks. Our 2022 Socioeconomic Impact Report will be published either late this week or early next, which, and I think we've been on the show to discuss that in the past, and essentially it just, I can confirm that the report will show a continuing very, very positive impact of the CEC socioeconomic project on the local economy. Our new building will be online in October, so we're very excited about that. We're approaching 325 companies in the SEZ, and the newest thing, the thing that we're here to talk to you about, is the Cayman Islands Computer Sciences Society, which is part of our complement of societies, the newest one. We already have the Cayman Islands Virtual Asset Society, the Cayman Islands Artificial Intelligence Society, and we're actually working on a few others.
You know, it was a joke when I hear about artificial intelligence, but I got definitely. Ali, when we come back from the break, if it's okay to start back with you, and only because I say this with the greatest respect, during the break you say no, we can change it. We need to go to attract more and more of us into the science realm. Our schools and professors talk about STEM, and as we look at careers in the tech sector, maybe sometimes we don't see what it could entail, how lucrative and rewarding it can be from the financial, but also from the personal. Could we maybe talk a bit about that, why that's so attractive, maybe why more of us should consider it, not to dismiss getting involved with education as a teacher or medicine as whether you want to be a physician specialize in some sort of cardiothoracic surgeon, for instance, or you want to service the technical equipment, but it's the tech sector. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to pause and take that short break, and when we come back we invite you to please rejoin us. Stay tuned.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
There you go, sir. Thanks for choosing JN Money Transfer.
Boy, thanks to JN Money Transfer, I can stay right here in Cayman and pay mama bills back home in Jamaica. Her water, light, phone, and other bills never late. Every month I pay everything in one place.
Make payments to over 30 companies in Jamaica through JN Money Transfer. Fast, affordable, convenient. Call 1-800-744-1163 for details.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us as we welcome our friends from Cayman Enterprise City. It's a chance to maybe focus on what the CEO Charlie Kirkland was referencing, the Cayman's Computer Science Society. Ali Famar, if I may ask you, I mean, as Charlie was sharing, we have a plethora of other sort of societies, associations, and the like, which is good. It brings the professionals together. It brings the community an awareness of the things that are happening that we could be a part of. Maybe two questions. The first one we're asking about, what's attractive, why we should attract. But what is the Cayman's, Computer Science Society, and we want maybe talk about that as well.
Sure. This society is less specific than our artificial intelligence society or our virtual asset society. This is meant to be more of a general approach to tech, basically, and making sure that any of our students, no matter what age they are, they can see a pathway into a number of tech spaces and tech fields. Some of us fell into the industry by accident. Nobody was there when we were growing up to say, take this path, my son. I didn't have my own Obi-Wan Kenobi or Yoda.
I had one.
Oh, good. You should invite him by the party next time.
Perfect.
And so some of us just fell into a thing that we found that we liked almost by accident. But bringing together professionals such as Ryan, who are not only in the field but building products and building companies, and he has interest in more than just Brave, enables them to have conversations with students about real life experiences and real life potential pathways that you don't necessarily get when you're in the school setting, and that's not to disparage the educational institutions. They are doing their thing. We can help them and their students by showing them real, achievable pathways between where they are now in terms of study and what a career might look like. We also think that quite frankly that tech can and eventually will be a third leg to our economy. Economics way back when was about labor, land, and capital. That old definition needs to be updated because folks like Ryan are not necessarily using a lot of land to build a great web browser. They're using other things like intellectual property and technical skills. So the way we want to define not only our careers and our opportunities for our students, but also economic opportunities in Cayman, probably needs to be looked at in a slightly different way than you would have learned, or when I went to college and opened up my economics textbook, it would have described in a different way.
Yeah. Wasn't that fun? That's probably your best class ever, right? Say yes.
Way back in the 90s, yes.
But as you shared, I mean, we would hear about the agrarian society of the early times, and then the industrial revolution, and then presumably the information age. And even in the Cayman context, we were always in information age, a service-based economy. And the real estate now isn't the land, it's that spirit there where you need some sort of bandwidth, you need some sort of capacity to be able to access that. With that in mind, there was some terminology for our various computer society way back when. How is this different from that, despite the time, as you shared? Is it more that was about hardware and the construction, and this is more about the service added value component in terms of attracting people to the tech sector?
Well, I think one of the big deals is that we've got Charlie behind us.
Yeah, Charlie.
Right? And so the success and the community of CEC, of which Ryan and his team are a part, is coming together to basically make sure that this thing is going to succeed. We were all talking before the show started about our children and how quickly they're growing up. We have all got a vested interest in making sure that we succeed in this and other endeavors.
With that, Ryan, if I may ask you, because maybe it's because it's a Monday, maybe because we're so pensive, maybe because at this time of year, schools are ending, graduations are happening, whether that's university or preschool. Not quite sure you have a graduate for preschool, but anyway. And children are going to be looking come September to some other, venture in their lives. Big school, moving up the grade for the final year, graduating, potentially heading off to additional training. All these things happen in some of the workplace. In the time that you've been in Cayman, what changes, positive or negative? I'll ask you with the greatest of respect to share with us as kindly and graciously, but as directly as you wish, because if we don't face the music, I don't know, man. We can't build a muscle.
Yeah, exactly. Talking of building the muscle, so my second company I have inside the Special Economic Zone is MuscleWiki, so thanks for that. Yeah, exactly. Laid that one up for me. That's musclewiki.com. That's actually the most popular website based in Cayman Islands, just so you know. It's basically a fitness website that you can learn how to get in shape and that kind of stuff. And I love building stuff, and like coming to Cayman was a fantastic opportunity for that. Being inside the Special Economic Zone, I got to meet a bunch of people in a similar mindset, working on similar stuff, and I feel like there's great opportunity for Cayman to kind of build up that tech sector. And so, to answer your question, some of the things that aren't going so well, I'll start with that. Is the banking here has not changed. Since I got here, there's been no changes there in terms of ease of setup and online banking, that kind of stuff. And even just setting up accounts for businesses takes sort of 6 months. So that's kind of like the negative side of things that I've seen for me. And the positive side is, like you said earlier, there's 320 companies inside the zone now. When I came here, I think it was a 150. So like that tech sector is growing. There is more for people to do. More interesting people to meet, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. I'll be. Charlie, go ahead.
Yeah, well, one thing I'd like Ryan to talk about it, if he will, is since Ryan has got here. Since he got here, he's been a very involved in our internship program, and is using the example of building things from Cayman and so on. But the way that Ryan, both with Brave and with his MuscleWiki project, has leveraged the internship program to take on young Caymanians. Some of them have actually been hired at Brave. Maybe Ryan could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So when I first came to the island, we only had 2 people in our office at Brave, and we decided that we would take on some interns via the CEC's intern program. And every year we take on 3 interns at Brave, and over the years, a couple of them have worked out really well, been really, go-getters and worked hard. So we gave them a job, and they're thriving there now. And then MuscleWiki, I started in Cayman a year ago inside the zone, and 7 of our employees are full-time, and 2 of them are Caymanian interns. So yeah, it's been great, and I feel like if we can continue to kind of foster that relationship between the schools and the businesses on island, that we're gonna see good things.
Yeah, and that reason I wanted Ryan to talk about that is because I think that's a great example of something that's going really well, and has great potential for the future.
And this is where maybe people already know that, but I don't have a vested interest, a pecuniary interest in Cayman Enterprise City. I mean, full disclosure, when I declared my candidacy, I just get my registered interest was showed up. But the reason why I'm a champion is that you talked about the third leg. A 2-legged stool may be okay if you could, ride a unicycle, you can ride a bicycle or tricycle. But if you have more legs to the economy, the stronger the stool, the better the support. And if our people, our young people in particular, can have better access, greater access, more opportunities. If you love to fish, are you going to use the same bait, the same line, the same hook, in the same spot every day? Or are you going to try something different? And this is what it allows us. But that takes vision. It takes the pioneering spirit. It takes a lot of acumen. It takes a lot of investment, whether it's the capital, whether it's the time, the talent. It takes a lot. And it takes a lot of licks sometimes to get where you want to go.
Well, I mean, the pathway has revealed itself as we've gone along, which is one of the really, really great things about the way our project has developed, is that people have come along, again, people like Ryan, who have showed us that this internship program has great potential. We need to really invest in this and work with the schools to get candidates and all of that sort of thing, and then bring it back to the societies, the Cayman Islands Computer Sciences Society. It was one of the things that we found was that so many of our clients, in fact, I'd venture to say the vast majority of them, want to get engaged. They want to participate in programs, and greater good type stuff, and whether it's interns or taking on interns, serving as a mentor, putting on a workshop, or teaching assistants at a introductory coding class, whatever it might be. So many people want to get involved, and that's where the societies came from, is that we need to give our people, the people in the SEZ, an opportunity to engage and to share their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bring it back to one of the the missions of the Special Economic Zones project is knowledge transfer, and the societies will be a mechanism for doing that.
And this, I guess, when you look at your economic impact, report that's coming up, we can see the financial contribution, but there is something else that may be less tangible, but it's probably as meaningful, and that's the knowledge transfer, the attractiveness to the sector. With respect to Ali, if I may again ask, and the reason why I appreciate you sharing, hey, I'm a professional geek. Some of us, unfortunately, maybe have many perceptions, and two of which is, well, you got to be a particular type person, particular knowledge skill set to be attracted to this sector, and then there's a lifestyle. If it's okay with you, would agree with me, I joke and jest with you all the time, but you could be a world champion race car driver. If you choose to be a professional wrestler, boxer, you could be anything, not just because you're smart and hardworking, but you bring it. Looking at you, you would probably quickly just as much assume to be, the high stakes, billionaire making deals as you could be the professional Olympian, as it were. So that mindset that some of us as parents and even teachers may have in guiding their children, well, that's career is not for you. You've sort of broken the mold, man.
Well, thanks for that. But I think as society has, over the years, has asked for more diverse skill sets from its geeks. So yeah, way back in the day, geeks, nerds used to be, socially distant guys that didn't know how to say hello to a girl and wound up eating granola and drinking soda instead of going to the prom. But I think. No, that didn't happen to me.
No,
I'm thinking that
it wasn't granola, but anyway.
Over time, so the demands of the tech sector have been much more than just computer programming. Okay, it's much more than just sitting in the corner and developing code. There's a lot more diverse fields of study and career paths within the tech sector. So we're looking for a lot different. There is no one category of person, no one type of personality that we're looking for. And I think back to Charlie's point of part of our key objectives as CEC being knowledge transfer. Every special economic zone exists primarily to be able to attract international entities that have a reason to come and set up shop in your zone. And one of the things that you do, and this is true of SEZs around the world, is that you inhibit or limit or restrict their ability to do business locally because you don't want them to compete with your local homegrown businesses. And that's fine, and it's been a success story in SEZs around the world. But what it does is it prevents you from gaining access to so many cool people, ideas, and technology that might exist just down the road, but in the special economic zone. So how many people knew that a global web browsing platform was based here in Brave, Ryan's company? So what we're trying to do is basically expose our students to the wealth of knowledge, skills, and opportunities that exist from the experiences that our special economic zone companies have gotten. And they, to their credit, they see that this society can really benefit from what they have to offer, not just making money, but they can actually positively contribute to what they call home now, the place that they live. So it winds up being a symbiotic type of relationship, and it's really exciting when you think about the potential that this has as we move down the road.
All right, gents, as we take this final break for a segment, when we come back, maybe you can share more. Charlie, we'll start with you. Good things are always happening, man. It's always exciting to be a part of it, to maybe get a bird's eye view and perhaps even the first-hand account. All right, to our listeners, please join us after the break.
This Father's Day, celebrate the hero in your life with the perfect gift from Reflections Clothing Store. Sale, sale, sale. Save 10 to 75% off brands like Dockers, Levi's, US Polo, Nike, Reebok, Puma, Adidas, Nautica, and more. From timeless classics to modern trends and athletic wear, Reflections has the perfect fit for dad. Save even more with our clearance baskets. Everything priced $10 or less. Don't miss the chance to save big while making dad look his best. Celebrate dad in style and save 10 to 75% off on Dockers, Levi's, US Polo, Nike, Reebok, Puma, Adidas, Nautica, and more. Only at Reflections Clothing Store, Shedden Road, beside Mango Tree, and across from Kirk Napa. Open Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday, 9 till 9.
At Doctor's Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctor's Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
Can you imagine your home completely organized? At Brand Source Custom Closets, we can. We specialize in designing and building custom closets and storage units for any room in your home, including the garage. With tailored designs and custom LED lighting solutions to fit your lifestyle and budget. Our custom closets expert is committed to enhancing the value of your home with a solution that is uniquely yours. Visit our showroom or call 623-6774 to schedule a no-obligation appointment with our design expert. Brand Source Custom Closets, 209 Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park.
We are now in the hurricane season, and to survive a hurricane, you need to be informed. If you have been informed by official sources that a hurricane is approaching the Cayman Islands, and you live in a low-lying area that is prone to flooding or near the beaches, which may be swept by high tides or storm waves, please seek a safe place and high ground. If the only way for you to get to a safe place is a road that is also likely to be flooded during a storm, please leave home early. Don't run the risk of being stranded. This has been a public service announcement from your community station, Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And a quick reminder, after the headline news at 1, we'll have a discussion about the climate policy. But now we're really honored for this opportunity to once again, through the CEO of Cayman Enterprise today, Mr. Charlie Kirkconnell, if you wouldn't mind, publicly and personally, showcase and highlight what I think is a good project, good for the economy, good for our students in terms of their potential, career development, but even the entrepreneurs, the people who may see something that they think from afar is impossible in Cayman, because it's in Cayman. They need to be Dubai or Silicon Valley or when San Francisco was San Francisco, even there. So, Charlie, through you,
Okay. Well, it could go in a variety of different directions. Kind of puzzling through how to properly answer the question, but I think the best way to look at to answer the question is to point at our Enterprise Cayman initiative, which is our not-for-profit community investment focused initiative. And one of the things that we recently did late last year, we completed a theory of change exercise. Because the last thing that we want to do is to put together a bunch of ad hoc programs that make us feel good but don't actually help anyone. They're not coherent. They're individual kind of clickbait type stuff, and so we took the time to go through a theory of change exercise, which I think I mentioned on one of our previous shows, which I did with a childhood friend who grew up here with me and is now based in Atlanta, where he's involved with a project called Computer Science for Atlanta It's a program focused on underserved communities. Anyway, the whole point there is that we decided that we needed to take a little bit of a step back and take a look at all of our programs and decide, is everything that we're doing, helping, and does it tie together towards a larger goal? And we completed that. And out of it, we put together, we narrowed things down to 8 programs focused on 18 plus. And one of the things that we're doing within Enterprise Cayman is that we kind of now have 2 streams: the entrepreneurship focused stream, which is the launch labs, because not everybody wants to get a job working for someone. They have their own ideas, and they develop their own skills, and they want to launch their own projects, like a Muscle Wiki. And so that's a very exciting pathway as well. And we're in the process of kind of reintroducing or rebranding the other things that we do under the Cayman Careers Development Bureau kind of banner, which is where this all started for Enterprise Cayman. That's actually what's in our agreement with the government. And the Launch Lab stuff is additional above and beyond what we do on the careers development side. And included in our careers development program, we have the Cayman Code Academy, and a new, very exciting project that the Cayman Islands Computer Sciences Society is going to support is the introduction of Coding Club. And the idea there is that it will be an open opportunity for people to come together on a regular basis to engage with each other, whether at whatever level they might be of, whether they're senior developers, junior developers, or maybe a student studying computer science or something similar. And out of all of that, the goal there is to create that forum where people can interact. Maybe that'll lead to internships. Maybe someone will emerge as a mentor for a student. Maybe people who hadn't worked together on a project before will decide that they're going to launch a new project. All of that kind of thing. So as far as where we see the project going, and I'm really focusing on the knowledge transfer and the local development aspect. We see the CI Computer Sciences Society tying together with our Enterprise Cayman initiative to create entrepreneurial opportunities and career opportunities for young Caymanians and maybe some not so young Caymanians who are interested in career change.
So there's hope for you yet.
Hey, he said young.
Running out of time. Running out of time.
But this is the great thing, because even even that person who has come to a particular point in his or her career, whether they've retired, semi-retired, or in their 40s or 50s, and say, you know what, could I change? There's learning. If I might, Ryan picked up on what Charlie was sharing, an economy, a country, for it to grow, for its people to prosper, for its people to sort of be rewarded and recognized, there needs to be an investment both in their talent but in the infrastructure. I think to different cities, even in the late 80s and early 90s, where it started to, when fiber was coming in, and the concession, I think in Georgia was a small little, sort of underserved neighborhood. Bring it with fiber, and we'll see if people come in. We see even a physical and deliberate attempt to invest heavily in the infrastructure from the Cayman context. For us as a country to develop the talent, to be able to have the coders, the entrepreneurs, and the products that come to market, not unlike a few other countries that are synonymous with some of the best tech. We could be that, could we not?
Yeah, we could, and I think we're going in the right direction. Like I said it before, Cayman Enterprise City is growing, and I'm seeing a lot of interested Caymanians, kids coming out wanting to write video games and things like that. And it's more about like having the opportunities here for them to stay, right? Because that's the problem. The talent imports unless it's finance or law-based business, that kind of stuff. So everything we can do to keep it as attractive as possible for them to stay here by offering them jobs, opportunities, people to meet with, That all needs to happen first before sort of like money and investment.
Yeah. So Ali, maybe in your final thoughts, that socioeconomic impact, Ryan hit on it. We can see talent and people leaving the jurisdictions. Many would term it brain drain, but we also see the attractiveness of that jurisdiction to others coming from afar. To maintain both the attractiveness of the jurisdiction to the best and the brightest elsewhere, but to retain our own people isn't always easy, and we always think the grass is greener on the other side. Sadly, it may be artificial grass, it may be over septic, but even if it isn't, it still needs to be watered. It still needs to be mowed. The grass still needs to be maintained. So how do we ensure that everything that we're doing here gives that promising Cayman that opportunity and opens the access for them?
That's part of what makes this effort that we're engaging in with the Computer Science Society exciting, because we all accept that if you just leave it alone, it won't necessarily become what you want it to become. It takes work.
Yeah.
You have to invest in it. So we're investing. We're investing time. We're investing resources. We're investing programs to make sure that there are multiple opportunities for students, and students at multiple ages.
Thank you.
To invest and to discover what kind of pathways there might be for them in terms of careers, but also, to Charlie's point, entrepreneurship. There are so many great ideas out there with our young Caymanians in terms of products and services that they just need a little bit of help, coaching, guidance. And so some of our programs are going to be able to address that as well.
Well, Mr. Colonel, maybe closing thoughts to you. I know you have a couple of things coming up that you want to highlight, but
yeah,
thanks again, man.
Caitlin will be very disappointed with me if I don't actually
just message
get these in. I think, and of course these are relevant to the discussion. We have a tech talk coming up on the 6th of July called Breaking into the Tech Sector. So it's a panel discussion on Cayman's evolving tech sector and what we can do to support a growing workforce that will fuel the growth of the industry. So anybody who would like to come along to that, Thursday, the 6th of July, at the Loft at the Compass Center, and that doors open at 5:30 p.m. There's no cost to enter. So, anybody who might be interested, please come along. And then I won't send me with a bunch of stuff. I won't take up all of the rest of the time with this. But I would like to say that our incubator, which we ran the first cohort of last year, so this one's on the innovation side. Anybody who's interested, anybody who has a validated business idea that would like to, go through a 3-month program designed to take you from validated business idea to investment ready status. Please visit email innovate@enterprisecayman.ky or go on our Enterprise Cayman website, which is www.enterprisecayman.ky, and submit your entry or your application. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks very much, Charlie, Ali, and Ryan. Thanks. Hopefully we'll have continued discussion, and all the very best on not just the success, but the inclusion, the invitation, and hopefully it'll involve more and more of our people. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Cheers.
All right, after the news, a new topic, new discussion, climate policy. Well, be a part of it. Stay tuned.
And Caitlin told me to leave this here.
Radio Cayman,
the voice,
the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
The headline news is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins. The Cayman Islands Postal Service advises that all post offices across the Cayman Islands will be closed to the public tomorrow, Tuesday, June 13th, to facilitate staff training. All post offices in all districts of Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman will reopen for business at their regular hours on Wednesday, June 14th. The airport post office opens at 8 a.m., the General and 7 Mile Beach post offices open at 8:15 a.m., and all other post offices open at 8:30 a.m. In international news, JP Morgan has reached an agreement in principle to settle a lawsuit brought on behalf of alleged victims of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Attorneys for the bank said it was in the best interests of all parties, especially the survivors who were the victims of Epstein's terrible abuse. The lawsuit had alleged the largest U.S. bank ignored warning signs about its client during a 15-year relationship. The terms of the settlement have not been disclosed. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's production company has said it did not consent for its film to be used in a new campaign video by former President Donald Trump. The clip, featuring a narration voiced by Damon from the film Air, was posted on Mr. Trump's social media platform Truth Social. The audio was used over footage of Trump as a young boy and as president. The studio said any use of material from Air by the Trump campaign where approval or consent is required, we do not grant such consent. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
The headline news are brought to you by Health Services Authority.
HSA's cardiology clinic is now located at Smith Road Medical Center. Our cardiology team provides expert care and treatment for heart conditions such as coronary artery disease, heart failure, arrhythmias, hypertension, congenital heart diseases, among others. The new location offers state-of-the-art cardiac diagnostic testing, including echocardiograms, ECGs, and stress tests. To contact, call 949-8600. At HSA, your heart matters to us.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Captain Charles Leonard Kirkconnell, OBE 1922 to 2010. Captain Charles Kirkconnell has donated land on all 3 islands for projects close to his heart. In Cayman Brac, he donated the land on which now stand Faith Hospital, the Dental Clinic, and Kirkconnell Community Care Centre. The Booby Pond Reserve on Little Cayman began with his gift of a small strip of land along the pond, and in 2001 to 2002, he donated the land for a new church in Blossom Village. Bethel Baptist Church on Walkers Road, Georgetown, is built on land given to the church by Captain Charles and his brother. He represented the Sister Islands in the Legislative Assembly for almost 13 years, 8 of which he served on Executive Council, holding the portfolio of communications, works, and district administration. During his tenure, the road across the bluff was completed. The Aston Ruddy Civic Center was built. The Cayman Brac Airport runway was lengthened to 6,000 feet, and a new terminal and fire station were built. New docks were built on both Sister Islands, and a new Port Authority building was undertaken. Captain Charles and his wife, Carol Jean Nee McIntosh, have 5 children. Captain Charles Leonard Kirkconnell.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And thanks for the opportunity. I hope and pray that people get as much out of each day as I do, not only for the presence of wonderful guests to be so well informed, but at times, to laugh and to love life and to live with a sense of purpose. So, to our wonderful guests, welcome. Good afternoon, Miss Lisa and Hurlston McKenzie. Did I get it right today?
Yes, you did. You get it right all the time. I don't know why you worry so much.
I don't know why. David called me and said, "No, you remember who my dad is?" So get it right. He's listening. But if it's okay, I'm, very, very almost encouraged on a daily basis by the people in our society, the acumen, the sense of commitment, and that should instruct us, but it also should inspire us. And whether you sit by your desk and you just plug away, or whether you're in the field or on a construction site and you're literally, tasking you with truth, it's good to see that work ethic that we exhibit. So makes me encouraged, man. And to Mr. Simon Boxall. Good afternoon to you, sir. How are you?
It's always good to see you. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Rested up well after the weekend. Got in the water.
You did?
Ate 2 mangoes in the water. I didn't get to do it enough.
Wow.
I tell you, good ones too. I went down where they were cleaning fish there, and there's a guy who's got like a little fruit stand. It's good.
Man, no, I know. Even Joel Francis is going to be envious. He went in the water with mangoes. You know, Joel's going to say, did you throw them out really far or pelt them out to see if you could dive and get them? Or you just waded into the water?
You leave them for the big gillimbos to like clean up. And I found line crab too.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that, because maybe that's a good way for us to appreciate not just the access that we have, but the beauty of our nature that we can enjoy. There are many people who live in spaces where they can't get to the water, whether that's a river or a ravine or some sort of, pond, or whether it's the open ocean. They can't because it's inaccessible, but if they could, they wouldn't. I mean, I don't know the last time I took a swim in the Hudson River or the Thames, but I wouldn't encourage it, right?
Even in Florida where it's warm, you might get eaten by a crocodile or get like a water moccasin snake hit you. We're lucky. We're so lucky. I keep reminding myself I got to get in that water, especially when the sun's going down. I mean, it's so close by, but I have to give presentations too and warn people, though, that just as it's so beautiful, it carries a certain amount of risk, and we have to adapt.
Mr. Simon, if you don't mind a slight correction, right?
Okay.
Off air, we will remind crocodiles elsewhere, alligators. Lord. Is that okay?
Right. Yeah, that's right. We had like a couple of crocodiles come in, and I think we still got that crocodile, right?
You were thinking of the caimanes, right? Yes.
Yeah.
The caimanes quebecas.
Caiman is actually an Indian word for a crocodile, and there were certainly crocodiles here.
Yeah.
Interesting, Mr. Connolly up in East End, he took me down by Mermaid Springs. And those sea cow manatees, they have to actually drink fresh water. So I wonder whether, because it's Mermaid Springs, whether they were getting that muddled up with manatees. It could have been manatees here too, because we had a few of them wash in too.
Yeah, it might have been mermaids. I mean, we see the beauty of some of our people. I watch Disney movies before they had stashes on it. Then you stop. It's only Monday, guy. I have a long week ahead and not much coffee in my diet. But, Miss Lisa, the idea of a climate policy and the notion that, as Simon just shared, that love and affinity that we have for the water. I'm convinced that many of us, we would bleed salt water. That love for the sea and the environment is just so imbued in us that it's not second nature. It is who we are. And yet, maybe, quote-unquote, man, humankind's impact on the environment, as much as we're trying to be sensible and sensitive, sometimes we are not so. From what we've been doing so far and the public consultations and the like, what sort of feedback? What's been happening? How do we get people to disagree but respectfully, support and champion but again respectfully, maybe ask the questions, maybe understand what we're trying to do? And it's not about tomorrow or 30 years from now, but it may be right this second.
Yeah, well, certainly we've been going out to the public with the climate change policy. As you said, we've had all district meetings up until this week, when we go to East End tomorrow night, the East End Civic Centre, and then on Thursday to Northside at the Northside Civic Centre. Our team will be there starting at 6 o'clock to welcome people and to take them through the posters. And then a little later on in the evening, we will go through the presentation to sort of tie everything together and, of course, answer more questions in an open forum. But the feedback that we've had so far has been really terrific, particularly in the Sister Islands a few weekends ago and last week as well. And not just in terms of protection of our oceans that you talked about, Sterling, but a lot of questions about the policy and protection of mangroves as well have been a reoccurring theme in the questions that people have, and or glad to see that there is mention of it and specific strategies to enhance their protections in various different ways. in the actual strategies that they were able to see either on the posters or mentioned in the presentation, or for those who had the opportunity already to take a look at the draft policy itself in print. Or online, which people, I'll just do a reminder now, but I'm sure we'll do several plugs throughout the hour. You can download the draft policy, as well as get more background information to the whole policy formulation process, and the digital feedback form to give us your feedback on the policy at www.gov.ky/climate change policy, all one word, or by emailing us at climate@gov.ky.
And with that, we recognize that as a people, there are many competing demands. We're pressed for time in so many ways. And with a policy of any sort, but one like this, some of us may say, well, that's a lot of work, a lot of reading, I don't have time for that. That is something that is happening. My individual impact is insignificant. The consequence is down the road. I mean, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, that is the respectfully the mindset of some of us. How do we make that more immediate, more urgent, not to scare, but to appreciate? And I say that thinking of what I believe was the ethos of our forefathers. The coconut is probably the best example. The way they used, they never abused. They had a mantra, waste not, want not. They would say things like save some for marina day, make provision. They did things that seem like common sense, but today we almost take it for granted. There are some, for example, long before there was a marine policy relative to conservation, they only went out, I think to my father, and they got what they needed. They were selective in what they took, and they balanced it. I don't know if that's something that they learned through the generations, as I think, or whether that was a whisper from on high, but they had a sense and sensibility as opposed to some of us today. So Simon, I mean, your enjoyment of the water the other day is just reminiscent of the appreciation and respect that we have.
Yeah, going back to the initial bit where you talked about how we're all very busy. We've got a lot going on. We're struggling to put food on the table and shoes on the kids' feet and pay for the mortgage if you can afford your home. So, and you're right, it's pretty long. The document is 100 pages long. So that's kind of the reason why we're going to the districts, to kind of engage with people directly. But you know, it encompasses so much the impacts from climate change. I think you almost need to cover many different elements to make sure you have the policy right. But we're also here on the radio explaining it. But I take your point, I think, and we were talking about it a while ago. I think it was a survival element back then when people recognized if we wipe out all the conch or whatever, then there's not going to be enough for us next year. So there was this sort of a sensible kind of respect for the environment that, you know, and it impacted us in ways. I mean, typically the homes, I remember, were set a little further back from the shore, often with some trees and stuff in front of the property even. It wasn't so much about the view as just making sure that you are safe from the waves. And
So, Miss Lisa, if I may ask you, sorry, Simon.
No, don't know.
That survival element that Simon referenced, if anything, that's more evident and more urgent now than it was then. Not going to profess to be an environmentalist, an engineer, or anything. Just looking and living. Our ancestors would say, well, along here, you know, there was no deep water. This was a shallow shoreline. And we had, today's words, mangrove buffer. They called it something else. And they would say, you know, hurricane came in and there was something that helped to slow it down. Again, just listening to the elders, and they say, well, no, it's nothing. It's just like a runway. It's all flared and things. So their concerns. And then we live in would see, well, you know, it never used to flood here, or it's flooding here more because of that. So that survival element, in your mind, is it as important or more important now than it was 10 years ago, 100 years ago?
Well, I guess both. I mean, it's always been important, but it's probably more important now that we start to take action because of some of the things that you talked about, evidence that we've already seen, communities that are already consistently being flooded on an annual basis, and it doesn't even take a direct hit of a hurricane or even a direct hit of a tropical storm, but just these intense rainfall events that are happening much more frequently and causing as great an impact as we've seen in the past, and even more. And so, we don't want that to be happening on a regular basis where we're all always on the back foot and we're never sort of ahead of that, one step ahead of it. And of course, Simon can speak to this much more than I can. We have to be in the game of preparedness at all times. And it's not just for, the major storms, the major events like hurricanes, but it's for these other, what we call the extremes, that we're seeing much more frequently. On the one hand, the flooding that we just talked about, but on the other hand, the drought cases, and the fact that those are happening much more frequently, and similarly to the rainfall, when they do happen, they do seem to be much more extreme, or they hang around for a longer period of time. And if we had some of our farming community here with us today, I think they would attest to the same thing, that they're contending with longer periods of drought that's affecting not just their crops, but perhaps their cattle and other livestock that they have been rearing for generations, or maybe they're just new to the game and they're finding out that this is a little bit more difficult than anticipated, not just because with all the things that come with being in that business or that activity, but because of just day-to-day weather. But on a long-term basis, day-to-day weather becomes a climate.
So what do we say then to individuals? I think as part of maybe public awareness discussion feedback, that this is as much an academic exercise, or is it something that's really practical and immediate?
I think there's still there's difficulties with climate change. Obviously, we see it politicized in the United States.
In Europe as well.
In Europe. Yeah. A lot of people are still sort of in a denial phase. Some people don't think it's human-induced. We look kind of at the mountain of evidence. And at Hazard Management, as you said, Lisa, we have to kind of learn lessons from the past. We have to look at issues of, like, when that water comes and covers the roads out by North Sound Estates, or we get water in our homes from a hurricane. We can adapt, we can put in place plans, we can develop in ways that, our economy can't take enormous hits, like 3 months without power, 2 months without water, going for months without electricity, our critical infrastructure damaged by storms. There's a certain point, and we believe that, our population was 40,000 people when Ivan hit. There's been quite a big expansion, and to be honest, we haven't, a lot of the property that was built in that intervening period over the last 19, 20 years is still pretty vulnerable, that's still possibly open to risks, and those risks, as I explained, we believe scientific evidence seems to support. And so for whatever reason it's causing the sea to rise, the risk profile is increasing. And the evidence is almost without doubt the sea level is rising. You see, even the ironshore parts of, I believe that the blowholes go under the ironshore, open up a hole, gradually over time it erodes away, and you're seeing bits of the ironshore kind of carving off. That's how coves are formed. We're seeing erosion. I'm seeing the erosion in my lifetime of these limestone ironshore, it's breaking up a little bit. But, how many of these big hits, when we believe the environment is changing, where we're going to have more intense hurricanes occurring, we have to plan for what's happening. And so if you got diabetes, you don't sit there navel-gazing, wondering why you have it so much as like, well, what do I do now to stay healthy and fit and strong? And, we will adapt one way or another, but I think if we can have like a planned way of doing it, and that's what this mitigation and sort of the climate change policy is about. How can we continue to be a successful, robust environment where, our younger generation, there's a generational gap. These people are really worried, and they don't need any convincing. But at this point, their voice is not as well heard as maybe, the people in leadership positions. But, we know it's happening. So let's adapt and do something. And we can do it. But we want to hear your voice, too, about where the priorities, because some of it's going to be, driving policy changes, even in terms of how we develop, how we build, could add some costs. Hopefully it won't. Hopefully we can build in smarter ways. But looking at, our road networks, all of these things are vulnerable, and climate change is making it significantly more. Just an inch rise in sea level could increase the flooding by 5-fold or something,
And we have been hearing, actually, from those young voices through the public consultation that we've had to date, either one-on-one or face-to-face, with some of the young people, Simon and I, and the Director General from the Weather Services last week at UCCI, and that was a really, really interesting conversation with them. Some of them voicing the fact that they don't think the policy has gone far enough. In certain respects, right? Particularly in terms of the livable built environment strategies under that policy heading. But we also heard from 2 different subsets of the Protect Our Future young people as well. And similarly, they've been asking how they can participate in this whole process and how they can help get the word out as well. So we've been very encouraged by that, and we would continue to ask people to go to that website that I gave earlier, click on the online feedback form and give us your feedback that way, or to email us any other concerns or comments that they may have at climate@gov.ky, so that we can ensure that, as Simon said, that these voices really are heard, are recorded, and that in the next iteration of this draft policy, before it goes up to Cabinet in July, that we really do have it right, that it's not, our policy that we produced in the ministry with our partner agencies such as HMCI, Weather Services, and Department of Environment, but that it's the national policy of the country, that it's your policy, listening and viewing public, embrace it and give us your feedback so that, you can feel confident and comfortable that the initiatives that are proposed in there are really in your best interest and for the generations to come.
So with that then, when we look at, just as you shared, this is a global issue, and how do we, if anything, reconcile that small few people, with the greatest respect, you look at some maps, we probably don't even appear. If we do, you have to look to say, well, is that something that dropped on a map? For those of you I'm talking about, the paper maps that, old people like me use. And then the editorial of the Compass way back when they talked about, the Cayman is so small that we shouldn't be worried about it. We can never have the skill set to get, the Nobel laureates, the abilities of our athletes to win a gold medal or a World Cup. So when it comes to the environment, the little 2 bits that we do really don't really matter. It's insignificant, negligible. So the global impact, the local view of an editorial like the daily newspaper at a time, is it conflicting or is it just we're ill-informed?
From hazard management's perspective anyway, I don't necessarily think it matters too much who we blame. I mean, it would be a great idea to know maybe we could pinpoint what's causing the blooms of sargassum that we see in the summer, which is probably linked to climate change as well, and try to stop them doing it. But that's a challenge. Maybe we'd have to unite as the whole Caribbean region to insist. But we are getting some help from the UK. They help finance where they actually looked at the risks, and Lisa will talk more about that. But we're more focused on what we're facing and the need to adapt and change and mitigate and get through this in a sensible way. I think You know, you're right, we're a drop in the bucket, even though our emissions are sort of proportionally a lot higher than other people. It would be great to bring that down. From HMCI's perspective, like I said, it's more about, okay, this is the reality we're facing, and we need to make sure Cayman is robust and strong and resilient and just power through.
For me, individual responsibility is important. You know, and again, this is just a personal ethos.
Feel that too.
What I do may or may not affect you, but it certainly has an impact. And I was raised in a household where you take responsibility for your individual actions. You consider, have consideration for what you're doing. You know, if you don't keep your yard good, the neighbor looks bad. It doesn't affect them directly in a sense. So, but with that in mind, in that sense of imbuing within our people, that shared ethos, that individual responsibility and accountability is important. But for those who would say, as an example, there was a time, probably still exists, cruise ships passing, they'll pump their bilge at sea, they'll dump their garbage over, or we'll see that washing up on our shores. How do we influence that bad behavior, because it's negatively affecting us? If we can't affect that, surely what we're doing here isn't even a drop in the bucket. So, Miss Lisa, how do we get to that space where, as we're impacted by what's happening around us globally, that what we're doing individually isn't diminished, dismissed, or somehow devalued?
Yeah, I mean, like Simon said before, it hardly matters, you know, who you blame or how you look at the issue of how we came to be where we are. The fact of the matter is that we know that we have to do something. And as I often say, the fact that we have such a good track record of responding to hurricanes, for example, in this country, sets us up well for continuing to adapt to climate hazards, not least of which hurricanes. And there is an element of individual responsibility for that, for yourself, for your household, for your business, and even beyond that, you know, altruism for your sector. If you're deeply involved in a particular sector of the economy, part of a larger association or part of a service group, for example, part of a church group, we have those social networks and those support systems in place. And so I think we're at a very good starting point when it comes to adapting to climate change, and particularly from that hazard. What I think we need to start thinking about more broadly is how do we then take that set of, as you were talking about earlier, skills in the country, individually as well as on a household and community level, from the CERTS group that Simon can speak about, and along with the Red Cross, for example, and other service and church groups and community groups, and build that out into other sectors, and to be able to address other climate hazards that the risk assessment, which Simon mentioned, the UK through the Governor's Office was fortunately able to fund for us. That's the 160 something page document, but we do have a 23-page summary of that. The climate change policy itself is a lot more digestible at about 58 pages back to cover. But, you know, that's a lot of pretty pictures and tables and graphs, and it's got lots
easy
of
reading.
Easy reading. At least we've been told it's been easy reading. At the moment, I think less than a quarter of people think it's still maybe a little bit too technical. At least that's the feedback that we've had to date during looking at the results of some of the online survey. But for the most part, yes, people have told us, also people from other parts of the region have told, who are looking at our climate change policy, have told us that the policy is actually a lot more digestible than some other places. So that's positive. That's good to hear. But we want to continue to hear more.
You know, we want to make it accessible and readable, but we don't want to water it down that it has no impact. So when we come back, many things we want to ask, but maybe some of the feedback so far, talk about the public meetings and the like, and how we can engage the consequence of so doing or even ignoring it. Different things. Please, you know, allow me to be as informed as I can. Maybe in asking and answering, I might actually understand. So guide me when we return. All right, to our listeners, please stay tuned and join us after the break.
They say variety is the spice of life, and that's why at Subway we're introducing the new boneless hot sub.
Say what?
The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new boneless hot sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands. The ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom. The land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Prevention is key. Is your heart at risk? During the month of June, Baptist Health International is offering special pricing for cardiac CT scan for calcium scoring for just 99 CI to patients at high risk for heart disease, the leading cause of deaths worldwide. You are a candidate if you are 40 to 65 years old and have any of the following risk factors: obesity, current or recent smoker, family history of heart disease, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, or diabetes. To request an appointment or for more information, call 749-3304 or visit baptisthealth.ky.
In celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Department of Lands and Survey, land register rectification fees have been temporarily waived. Property owners now have the ability to amend land registers for free until July 30th. Updating your land register improves communication, provides legal protection, makes property transactions easier, and protects against fraud. Keeping your current legal name and addresses updated is required on your land register, and now you can do it for free until July 30th. For more information, contact Lands and Survey at registry.info@gov.ky or call 244-3420.
Talk to Dick. But I do have some questions. Talk to Dick.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk to Dick.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for the opportunity, and thanks to our Senior Policy Advisor in Environment Resilience in the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency, Ms. Lisa Ann Hurlston McKenzie, and of course, Simon Boxall, our Communications and Public Awareness and Training Officer over at HMCI. As we talk about the climate policy, I was asking about some of the feedback, and they're like, respectfully though, first, may I just read a comment from one of our listeners? And I'll do my best to read it so it's not only comprehensible and audible and everything, but verbatim. This listener writes, one of the challenges with the implementation of the climate change policy and reaching its goals will be the continual roadblocks placed on the public adopting renewable energy. This is one of the most direct, tangible things individuals can do to reduce their energy usage, reduce carbon emissions, diminish costs, and helps conserve land that would be used by large-scale renewable energy power plants, but it is constantly being stopped. It will thus not be possible to implement significant parts of the climate policy until that situation is resolved. To that writer's points, Ms. Lisa, any thoughts you may wish to share, Ma'am?
Yeah, I think the caller or the
listener,
the writer for the question.
And the reader for trying.
And yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And he or she is totally on point, and it allows me to say two things really. One is that we were talking about before Cayman being a drop in the bucket when it comes to greenhouse gas emissions contribution. I think all told in the Caribbean, we're only about 1% of global emissions when you put our footprints all together. But on a per capita basis, yes, we're quite high in our emissions just because, of the nature of our economy, our service-based economy here and our lifestyle and so forth. And renewable energy plays a huge role in reducing those greenhouse gas emissions, but it also plays a very significant role in being able to adapt to climate change and to have, for example, renewable energy technology on our shelters, our emergency shelters, for example, and having passive survivability where possible, especially in the newer shelters or shelters that can be retrofitted for renewable energy. So that is definitely anticipated in the policy, as the writer said, but it's also anticipated in the updated national energy policy, which our ministry is also putting out, and I think the public will be able to hear a lot more about that in the coming weeks. So we're very, very glad and very fortunate that both policies are coming out at the same time and are able to complement each other. So the other thing that I would say about that is that please, if the writer or any of the other listening and viewing public out there have very strong feelings about this and very strong feelings about how aspects of this policy and when they're able to view the national energy policy should be implemented, particularly in regards to either utility scale renewable energy systems or distributed generation when it comes to renewable energy, particularly solar, then please write in. We want to hear your feedback. That's exactly what these public consultation and engagement processes are for. I would say, though, with the climate change policy, we are only at that stage at this point in time in the stage of actually going out with a policy. We don't yet have an implementation plan, but all the comments that we receive on the policy to date, some of which you were asking, and when we came back from break, what the majority of the comments have been. At least on my part, the majority have been very specific implementation or actions that we appreciate the public giving to us on the various different strategies and saying, that's great because we're taking note of how you think certain things should be implemented, and that will be the next phase of this particular policy going forward. With the national energy policy, because it was a policy that's already been out there and is in its 5-year policy review at present and had an implementation plan and will have an updated implementation plan that we can show to the public. They're that much further ahead than we are with this policy. But hopefully after we get this national climate change policy through and can start working on the implementation plan in earnest by end of next month, end of July, then hopefully those policies will align along with other policies that are out there that may speak to having renewable energy technologies integrated into things like the agricultural sector or other sectors, so that we can really have these policies aligned, and that there really will be a push to get some of these long-awaited issues addressed in the country and uptake on renewable energy, so that we can meet our targets.
Are there any specific examples of feedback that you may have gotten to the public on any of the policies? The public saying, suggest this or that. Any examples to hand that you can share with our listeners now?
I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking, so I'll throw it to Simon and then I'll share maybe.
Thanks.
The other
Mr. Boxall.
I think, there's been many good suggestions from people. A lot of them are just like, get on and do it, We've been talking about this for a long time. They'd almost like to see government kind of act and do stuff. people, I think even in planning applications, you're seeing more and more people are concerned about this sort of chronic flooding issue. Like development goes next to them, or water comes into their property now, and they're seeing that, with the water table, the groundwater, people are worried about the leaching of the nitrates and phosphates that's damaging the corals, primarily in Grand Cayman. You're not seeing it as much in Little Cayman and Cayman Brac, where there's less of this leaching of the kind of the septic tanks into the the sewage into the water column. So people are now sort of starting to say, when is government going to have kind of a main sewerage system? These things take possibly hundreds of millions of dollars. So this is policy decisions for government to think about. But even these sort of lone voices in the wilderness is sort of saying these things. Their opinions are being heard and listened to. And it's not like government isn't doing anything at the moment. We're not just sort of hazard management. We're working on modeling, improved modeling. Obviously, we're looking at that first 3 feet and what it's going to mean if you have a foot of sea level rise over the next 30 years for our roads and our homes and our driveways and our businesses, and the increased impacts from waves and surge and so on. But so I don't think, but there are some big line items, like maybe people are saying, look at this issue of the groundwater more. We want a better focus on chronic flooding issue. That's one thing. The children are very worried about the environment. They see us kind of leveling the mangroves, and they just can't understand why you'd be doing that. And I think they think it's important maybe to preserve some of those, to keep those wetland areas as sinks for the flooding that they're seeing in their communities like Belfort Estates and so on. And they're like, well, why don't you protect that wetland area? And obviously land ownership is very important in Cayman. People don't really like to be told what to do with their land. That's kind of how Cayman has thrived, through not having a lot of bureaucracy. But at some point government does need to step in. We create laws for the greater good, while maybe a property owner wants their hotel as close to the sea as possible so people can enjoy the view. If it ends up impacting the beach, then the quality of life for the rest of us goes down, our tourism products go down. So I think that there is a need for laws and legislation. But I do think a lot of the people that are coming along are already sort of sold on the idea to some bit. So they're just kind of like, get on with it. Why can't we do recycling here? Cost of recycling in Cayman is a lot more than maybe in the States. We've got to ship a lot of this stuff off. I'm getting stuff from my phone, still people wanting the issue debated a bit more, like the old Issues 27 days. But as Lisa points out, the majority of people seem to agree that it's time for us to get on and do something now. The foot dragging days are done. You've got an opportunity now to provide the feedback, come to the meetings, have your, because it could in her, government's priorities are going to be rolling out based on this. It's maybe a choice between a school and sewage or something, treatment.
Yeah.
And it may not be sexy but it could be absolutely critical to move forward on something. But I think government also needs the voices to step forward. So that's why it was really satisfying when you see these young people from Protect Our Future, so passionate, so caring, and just like, please do more, get on and do it. We're worrying now.
But we also heard from young, and I'm not going to say old, I'm going to say older and seasoned individuals across the districts, really, but particularly in West Bay, being concerned just about the level of development. And as Simon said, also certain other issues, whether it's about plastics or mangrove protection, or how we continue to develop in mangrove areas or wetland areas on a whole. We have had several questions about waste management and the regen facility, for example, as it relates to not just the energy recovery side of things, but just waste management on a whole, recycling and composting, as Simon said. So we've touched on a whole slew of issues, and I think because the country and and particular communities have been wanting to know what is happening in respect of those particular issues, and they're just trying to understand how climate change will either exacerbate those issues if we don't address them now, or if we do address them now through this policy and other actions and activities and programs that are out there or soon to be started, will that set us up in a good light for, 10, 15 years down the road, when we know certain risks are going to become greater if we don't, or the cost of addressing those risks are going to become much more expensive, potentially more unmanageable. The fact that we might not be able to say that certain things are reversible anymore, but we're, the loss and damage on an annual basis, which has been predicted by some in the academic sphere, but also some in the insurance sector, for example, looking at this issue of climate change very, very, very closely when it comes to reinsurance and just insurance from a risk transfer perspective. And of course, we would want to be in a position where we would be transferring less risk and utilizing less of those types of products to really sustain us and to enhance our resiliency and be able to have the resiliency built in on a day-by-day decision making when it comes to, like Simon said, things like planning, applications, developments, sited in less vulnerable areas, or utilizing newer technologies that make the physical assets less vulnerable, requiring less risk transfer mechanisms at the end of the day to keep them around for the 50-year lifespan of a building nowadays, for example. So I think those are, for the most part, a good summary of, I believe, what the team has been hearing at the meetings, through the digital feedback forms. Personally, I know I have a slew of emails that I have to answer for people that, got my email last week and, decided to contact me directly. So apologies to those of you out there. If I haven't got to you yet, I will get to you. But it's been very encouraging also, and having people give us actually quite detailed feedback, and that has been helpful. It is helpful just to know, yep, you guys are on the right track, keep doing what you're doing, thumbs up. But it's also been very, very helpful to actually get verbiage and get language in terms of what people hope to either see in the policy or to see in the implementation plan.
Okay. Well, let's pause and take this quick break, and when we come back, invite you to share with us. Stay tuned. Talk today.
Freedom, Kim and Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Are you tired of waiting in long lines at the pharmacy just to fill a prescription?
If what, child, let me tell you.
Well, now you can save time and money with ValueMed's online prescription service. Visit ValueMed's new website, valrx.com, and click the Refill Subscriptions button. Fill in your information and choose your preferred pickup location. Or email your prescription refills for ValueMed Walkers Road at rx-wr@valrx.com, and for ValueMed in Boddentown, email rx-bt at valrx.com. Say goodbye to the hassle of waiting in lines and hello to the convenience of online prescriptions with ValueMed Pharmacy. Visit valrx.com to place your orders today.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin. The offices of dermatologist Dr. Dwayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drporterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020.
Homeowners, protecting your family and property is crucial during the season, and you should always assess insurance needs long before a storm makes landfall. Most insurers won't issue new policies or increases when a storm is imminent. Cayman Insurance Center's team of professionals can help owners like you find the most comprehensive coverage and competitive rates. Call the insurance professionals at Cayman Insurance Center 949-4657 or email info@cic.com.ky. Don't take chances with your family's future or your valuable assets. Call Cayman Insurance Center's insurance professionals today at 949-4657.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Talk to Dick. But I do have some questions. Talk to Dick.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk to Dick.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And thanks to Ms. Lisa and Mr. McKenzie and Mr. Samuel Vauxhall for being our guests. And as we talk about climate policy, I do respect that, you guys got other things to do after the headline news, but thank you for your extended time. Can I share some comments that we receive? I'll read all them all. Are we indeed having more frequent storms or droughts? Are these of greater intensity? Can we see any data? What are the measurements for the Cayman sea level rise? Those first two bits. I mean, do we have data for the Cayman sea level rise? Do we have data for intensity of storms?
I'll answer that first. Lisa probably want to jump in after. So the evidence we tend to use to account for the rise of the sea, at least since 1992, there have been these 4 satellites that have been up in space. The Topex Poseidon satellite was the first one that began measurements of the sea surface, and then it was continued by Jason 1, which was a NOAA satellite, and then now Jason 2, and there was a fourth one as well. So they've been measuring the sea, and obviously the wind blows the sea in different areas, so sometimes it's higher and lower, but over time it all sort of can be sort of reach some sort of measurement, equilibrium measurement. So the evidence, and it's supported by each of the 4 satellite missions, is about 3.8 inches over since 1992. And
where can you find that? If someone is doing rate of measurements for the Cayman sea level rise?
You can go under, if they did a search for satellite radar altimetry, it's kind of a long word, but just satellite measurements of sea level maybe would be a good thing.
Okay.
On the NOAA's website. NOAA, NOAA.
NOAA's website. I mean, they have greater capacity. We have been doing sea level sort of tidal stuff in Cayman for a while, but the precision of our data, to be honest, we don't really have a very good baseline of where the sea is in our immediate surroundings. So we do tend to depend on external sources to be true. In terms of the hurricane, we haven't really experienced a big hit since Paloma in 2008, Category 4, but with the sea surface temperatures, which have been measured very accurately, and is much easier to measure, in fact, than the actual sea surface level, we have seen a rise in the sea. temperature in the Caribbean Sea, and that is really the heat source for hurricanes. And so we have seen quite powerful cyclones like Dorian and Irma and the Ian, which did $50 billion worth of damage in 2021 to Florida. So the frequency of high-intensity hurricanes does seem to be rising. Again, we don't have a lot of long-term statistical information to support it, but the science of the heat in the sea, the atmospheric temperature, supports the rise in intensity of hurricanes. So I think with the added heat as well, you get an element of thermal expansion, which creates a rise in the sea level, in addition to the melting of the glaciers and things like that, which has enabled navigation up into places in the Arctic that we haven't been able to go to historically. So there's clear evidence of water that's locked up in the glaciers entering the sea and leading, adding to the rise, which also occurs with thermal expansion as we get a warmer environment. So
yeah, can I just say thank you very much for that, Simon, but to also just point people to the climate change risk assessment. Listening. That was done last year, as I said before, with the assistance of the Governor's Office and UK funding. And some of this information is distilled down in that report for Cayman, particularly for Grand Cayman. As Simon said, the tide gauge data that we had from the 70s and 80s up into the 90s in North Sound and South Sound, we have at least that data set for the islands to be able to compare to the regional sea level rise trend, which is very similar to the global trend in that respect. And you're absolutely right. The satellite telemetry information in the last 30 years has been able to refine those tide gauge figures, and we've been able to, globally, we know that since tide gauge information started to be recorded in the late 1800s, 1880 or so, that the sea has risen by 8 to 9 inches. And then, like you said, more recently, with that satellite telemetry data, 3.5 to 3.8 inches. And the issue with climate change is that rate of acceleration of sea level rise is getting faster and faster year upon year, but certainly decade upon decade. So some of that information can be found in the climate change risk assessment, along with the draft climate change policy, which is on the ministry's website. And again, that's www.gov.ky/climate change policy, all one word. You can scroll down through the website and you can click on the link to the climate change risk assessment, the large technical document, or the summary document, as well as find the draft climate change policy there, and the digital feedback form, which pretty much looks like this one here, and has about 20 or so questions to it.
I know you have other things, and I believe I'm told we got a caller or two. But we have the news break, so we can maybe get those questions from those callers and then share them with you if you wish, Simon.
Sure.
And I know you have to go on, so thank you all very much for your time.
Are we going to take that question, or you want to do the news first?
We have to do the news, my friend. It's your call. I'm on your time.
I want to hear the question. I mean,
hey, Simon says.
Let's stick around.
All right.
A couple of minutes after the 2 o'clock break.
So our listeners, our good people are willing to extend their time. Please stay on so we can do our news and be on the good side of normal. Not a bad place to be. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news. Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. Construction Management and Engineering Company Limited will be carrying out underground utility works on the West Bay Road in the vicinity of the new Watermark condos adjacent to Harbour Heights and the Avalon condos. One lane will be affected by this work. The work is scheduled to start Tuesday, June 13th at 8:30 a.m. and is expected to last for 5 days. Motorists and pedestrians are asked to use the Esterly-Tibbetts Highway as an alternate route to bypass the affected area. In international news, the suspect held over the fatal shooting of an 11-year-old British girl in France is under investigation for murder, prosecutors say. Selene Thornton was shot dead while playing on a swing in her garden on Saturday evening. Prosecutors said a 71-year-old neighbor got to within 10 meters of the girl's father before opening fire through a hedge. He had been in conflict with the family over building work on their property. William Barr, the former U.S. Attorney General who served under Donald Trump, has said the ex-president is toast if allegations he mishandled classified documents are proven to be true. Mr. Barr criticized his former boss and said he had no right to keep the files allegedly found at his home. Mr. Trump will appear in court in Miami on Tuesday to face dozens of charges accusing him of illegally retaining classified information. He has repeatedly denied wrongdoing. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Brought to you by Tropical Plaza on Smith Road.
Between the traffic, the meetings, kids' activities, there just isn't enough time. Best Health Pharmacy was a game changer. Not only are they centrally located on Eastern Avenue, but they deliver prescriptions for free anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. I could not believe it. When my prescription ran out, they ran it back to me. Best Health Pharmacy, located at Crown Square Plaza on Eastern Avenue, across from Edie's Decor, offering free prescription delivery anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. Call 949-1301 or WhatsApp your prescription to 924-5358. Best Health Pharmacy. Your health, your convenience is their priority.
Talk to Dick. But I do have some questions. Talk to Dick.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk to Dick.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
And good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks to Ms. Lisa Ann Hurston McKenzie and Mr. Simon Boxall for sharing with us about the climate policy. We did have a couple of callers. Thank you for allowing us to take those, and so you go through the phones. Let's see if they still work. Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sterling.
Good afternoon, Cap. How are you today, sir?
Oh, I'm still alive and kicking.
Thank God, sir. Thank God.
Campbell Helston, right?
I want to speak something about South Sound. That's the only place I know about it. I was born and raised up here 92 years ago.
Amen.
I think I know some of the thing about it.
Yes, sir.
But we talk about the tide rising. The bottom is coming up in South Sound. People don't realize that because years ago they used to crawl turtles up here in South Sound, right alongside our Lisa's grandfather's house there. And the vessel used to come and anchor right up there. Since they cut that channel up there in the reef, it's much more erosion. Well, this place was dredged out because where the rugby club is now, that was all filled in. That was all pumped in. So there was a lot of poncho. I can visualize that place now. I don't know any part about Cayman, but I know South Sound, and so we're talking about the tide rising, but it's not the tide is rising. The bottom is coming up. The bottom is right in by the cemetery there. I used to dive conchs down there when I was a little boy. You could anchor your boat and dive 150 conchs right there without moving the boat. Now, where the tenders anchor there, it's very shallow there. and that point there is called Pull and Bedam Point. The current came down from up on the head of what we call head of bay, where the reef come in and Red Bay was running very strong there. You had to walk your boat, what we call track the boats along the bay. You could hardly pull up against that current. Now all that is all gone, and so I have so much more I could say about it, but what I'm telling you is what I know, because Lisa, grandfather, I guess he was, grandfather, he used to call turtles up there. He was a turtle. He used to, the vessel used to sail right up in, big schooner used to sail right up there in South Sound. Now you got it, if you got a big outboard motor, you can hardly get up in there. So I just would like to pass that on, and this is not what I'm hearing, is what I know. I say I'm 92 years old, and I lived in South Sound. Most of I was born here in South Sound. I know this place very good. What I'm telling you is not what I hear, is what I know.
Camp Paul, if it's okay, if you have time and if it's possible to answer, if not, we can do another time. But as you were sharing, I just want to make sure I understand. When you see the bottom coming up, as opposed to the water sea level rising and getting deeper, you're saying it's getting shallower and with the bottom coming up. What do you think may be causing that in your 92 years and what you're seeing? What would be your opinion, sir?
I have a opinion of that, because I have a deep well in my yard here. A few years ago, when it had that little earthquake off there, it blew the top off of my place there about 30 feet up in the air.
Yes,
so there's a lot of pressure coming up out of there. It's a lot of pressure. Cause I remember when this big vessel used to discharge their turtle, and I said, Lisa, great grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
He was a turtle. Tended the turtle, crawled right up there off his house by the Caribbean Paradise. I know this place very well. And do you realize that South Sound was dredged out in the 70s?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All the fish pond, what we call fish pond, all the rugby clubs, that was all pumped in.
And the road was moved closer to, I guess, the sea. In a sense,
the road was right alongside the sea.
Right along, yeah.
Right alongside, and they moved it back to inland there. So
right.
I can visualize that place right now. So all of those shows, it was a lot of turtle grass, a lot of lots of shows up there.
Mm-hmm.
Lots that you could you had lobsters, conchs, and muches, more than you could ever think about using. But it's all gone. But it is coming up again, because it is very shallow. The schooners, the smallest schooner used to go sail up inside the reef and go up to Red Bay. So,
yeah.
So something's going wrong. I don't know what it is, but
yes, sir.
What I'm telling you is what God loves to hear is the truth.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Thank you for listening, and thank you for taking time to share with us. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks. Miss Lisa, if you wish to add anything.
Absolutely. Cousin Paul, thank you for calling in. It's been a little while since we've had a chat, and so hopefully we'll be able to catch up soon. We usually meet around his birthday in January, so I think unfortunately we missed that catch up this time around, but he's absolutely right. And my grandfather also used to build his schooners and launch his schooners where he said their Caribbean haven, the Meltonian and the Melpomene. But yeah, a couple of things that he said absolutely ring true, and anecdotal information is all is good to back up the scientific information that we have, and we know that any type of dredging or deepening offshore, the sea will claim back what it used to have before and then some. So he's absolutely right in terms of channels being cut and erosion processes exhibited, and then over the course of time those areas get filled back in, and sometimes they get filled back in even more so than when they were originally removed from. So that's part of what we're seeing, not just in South Sound, but in other sounds as well, where deep water channels have been created for navigational purposes, for fishing vessels and for recreational vessels to get into these areas. And that's part and parcel of development and being able to enjoy our areas recreationally on the weekends, as Simon said at the top of the show, being able to go out and eat his mangoes from a boat, not mangroves, sorry.
I thought you said
maybe to tie up to mangroves when you need to. But yeah, absolutely. And not just that, but also it just goes to show how it's really important that we hear from our longtime residents and Caymanians about areas that have changed over time, because that lends to the knowledge base here, and to also understand, particularly when it comes to the coastal resources and shorelines and shoreline change and shoreline dynamics, that from one shoreline to the next is different. So what we see in South Sound, we might not necessarily be seeing in Frank Sound, or we might not necessarily be seeing on more exposed coastlines in the north side of Grand Cayman versus elsewhere in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Right.
So it's critically important that we continue to have this intake of information from local communities, from long-time residents, from our Caymanian population, to be able to continue to add to the data sets, not just the scientific stuff in terms of the climate change risk assessment, but year upon year, to be able to have that as our continued knowledge base being built.
Right. We do have that other call. Thank you again for allowing you.
I'd love to jump in very quickly.
Of course, Mr. Simon.
Sorry. Captain Paul, yeah, I think he knows a lot more than about just South Sound there. I mean, I've seen a map he's made of Georgetown with the old buildings on it. And but I think it does show that sand is a very dynamic thing, and I believe the same as what he was saying about South Sound is also true of Boddentown area, that the schooners used to come in there too as well. And my experience in Little Cayman as a fishing guide, I know after Hurricane Gilbert that the front units, the sand came in and covered up everything, just the roof stuck out of the sand, so it can come and go. And it's, you quite often see off 7 Mile Beach now the wood from the old forests where the, hurricanes pushed, over. I think it would be interesting to radiocarbon date those wood, that's getting more and more exposed off 7 Mile Beach. But just while I've got old Captain Paul Hurlstone, who I have very high respect for, and he's got an amazing memory and an incredible man in so many respects. I was a founding member of the Catboat Club along with Captain Paul, but I just wanted to shout out to Mr. Kem Hurlstone as well, who's not very well right now, but again, listening to our elders, the people, the wisdom, the knowledge that some of these people have, I think it's critical. And I think maybe we should call up Mr. Hurlstone and get his input, because maybe he's not really Kem Jackson. Yeah, Mr. Kem, what an incredible man he is. And Mr. Kem, we hope you get better, because he's one of my heroes. Really, Mr. Kem.
He's taken you sailing and brought you back safely, man.
He did, yeah.
All right.
A lot.
Indeed, thank you for that. Let's take this quick call, and I really appreciate you guys willing to offer up some more time. Welcome. Thank you for patience for holding on, and thanks again for sharing. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you, man?
I'm excellent. I think there's some really serious problems with this entire policy. It's based on a hypothesis that is not really proven. It has a deep history of making claims that have turned out to be false. It even has a golden parachute aspect to it, in that those who have the money can buy the opportunity to continue to pollute, which is the thing that the policy claims it doesn't want to allow. So why would you allow some people to use carbon credits to continue polluting above where it is said that one should not be polluting? What kind of discussion have you had with people who disagree with your policy? Or has this been another exercise similar to the COVID strategy in which anybody who disagrees with the strategy gets characterized as a conspiracy theorist and shut down? I don't believe that this idea of not having proper discussion with people that disagree with you is scientific. As a matter of fact, that's the opposite of scientific. Scientific is when you have a hypothesis and you put it to the test and it can withstand the rigor of the scientific method. What you have is projections and assumptions about what the future might mean if we continue on a certain path. The problem with the path is that things oscillate and they return to the mean, and then they, up and down. This is not just a one path and you stay on that coordinate forever. So I would like to hear some real debate with people who vehemently disagree with your policy. I don't buy a lot of it. A lot of it has been, over the years, people have had to change their positions. People from Harvard were proven to be absolutely wrong. They made it sound like the world was going to end, and they were absolutely wrong. Al Gore was absolutely wrong. Greta Thunberg was absolutely wrong in 2022, I think. I'm saying to you that you should not be speaking about this as if it is a proven fact. It is built on a model of assumptions. And while you might be able to look at it and say, oh, it's going up at the moment, nothing ever goes in one direction forever.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we know, and thank you, Danny, and I totally agree. By the way, anybody who's got a contrary opinion is welcome to come to our policy meetings. And we're not, we're open to both sides of the debate. And we recognize that some people still are not convinced, or some people don't believe that it's climate-induced. But one second, Danny. But I think what you said about the oscillation at the rise and fall over the sea is absolutely right. We know that it's been higher up at some point in our past because you can see the wave cut notch. And I think from our perspective, though, you look at the evidence for the rise of the sea is almost undeniable at that point. There's some evidence that now, it looks like the people in denial about some of those things, like the fact that the sea is rising, are either funded by like special interest groups, who are like fossil fuel companies or whatever, or they're on the political, like they've got a political agenda, as we saw in the pandemic, and manipulating almost the weight of the evidence about something like the rise of the sea is difficult to deny at this point, almost impossible if you look at the science. But I will agree that there's something about the climate that's so complicated and so immense that it's almost impossible for us to ever be able to fully anticipate. But we have to look also at what is happening, the flooding that's occurring, the impacts from the rising water table. When you see the sea covering North Sound, the roads down in North Sound estates, government can't put our blinders on to what's happened, from impacts from flooding and storm surge and wave impacts and erosion of beaches and not do. We have to use our recent past to inform us, and also what evidence we have at our disposal. And the IPCC, the global consensus of opinion, organizations like NOAA, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the credible scientific entities that we depend on for things like hurricane forecasting, National Hurricane Center, the weight of opinion is firmly in favor of that this is real and that it's happening and it's not just talk. And I agree, some people don't like the polluter pays principle where, people get punished for having a SUV or whatever. There's always going to be a political argument to it, but the evidence that the sea is rising is almost we're happy to hear the arguments against it, but typically, they're they're not on the side of science at the moment, to put it that way. The credible scientists are saying. Sorry, Lisa wanted to quickly jump in before you come back.
Sorry. And if I could just add to that too, we forgot to plug the National Weather Services weather. I think it's weather.gov.ky site, where a lot of their local information has been kept there for quite some time, and they also do their climate bulletin as well, which ties in with the climate bulletin or Climate Caribbean Outlook, I think it's called, that is produced from the regional bodies around the Caribbean as well. And our local information is there in terms of the warming trends, both warming days and warming nights, and the difference between that day and night temperature that has been reduced over the last 30 plus years is very clear there in terms of the trend. But I'd also say about the carbon credits, it's just one strategy that's being explored, because government is getting interest from many different areas, and interests in the sense of not just trying to be able to formalize a polluter pays system. That's kind of really not where its genesis is at, but it's more to do with the fact that it's more to do with the fact that it's just one other mechanism of climate finance to be able to put forward what we call no regrets type strategies. If climate change wasn't happening and we were just looking at basic sustainable development practices, would we want to be doing some of these things anyway? And that's what we've been hearing very loudly and clearly in this country for a long time, but also too more recently because we have the climate change policy out there. But the climate finance side of it, in terms of very specific things like what Dwayne was asking earlier, in terms of the renewable energy side of things, and how are we, going to get to meet those targets that are primarily in the national energy policy, but also supported in this policy. Climate finance is one way of being able to do that. And because we, as an overseas territory, although we are party through the United Kingdom to the overall climate change framework convention, we don't have access to some of those climate finance instruments. But the carbon credit side of things, outside of that formal system, might be a way that we might be able to finance some of these projects in the country on the renewable energy side of things, but also on the adaptation side. And adaptation funds is always a lot more difficult to get your hands on, whether you're a big jurisdiction or whether you're a small jurisdiction like a small island such as us. So it's just another way of skinning the cat, so to speak, which may or may not pan out, but it was put in the policy because it's something that government is already getting questions about. Why aren't we looking at doing this? The Bahamas is now doing it very successfully. primarily off of their seagrass meadows, which they have found that the extent of seagrass meadows and the carbon that's actually stored there and sequestered on an annual basis contributes something like 8 to 10% of the global carbon sequestration in those systems around the world, which for a small island but a large ocean nation is actually quite impressive. And obviously we don't have that expanse of coastal shelf that the Bahamas have, but what we do have, thankfully most of our seagrass meadows in most of our sounds are already in protected areas. But is there a way that we can better utilize our resources to help us finance some of these projects in areas where we may be falling a little bit short? So that's why that particular strategy is in that side of the policy.
Well, the real reason the strategy is in the policy is so that others who don't want the caps of carbon that would apply to everyone else, to apply to them, so that they can buy their way out of that limitation. That's the reason for the carbon credit.
Well, carbon credits don't necessarily have to be tied to a cap and trade system. So I think that is one thing that hopefully the public will want to know and be clear about, that we're not proposing a cap and trade system. And as I said before, the carbon credits...
We're gonna run out of time. But let me say this before we have to wind down, is that the time that's given to discuss this is way too short. The time that is necessary to go through this in a thoughtful way is going to take much more time than what has been allotted for this. I know that the government is interested in checking it off to say, oh, we gave you a certain amount of time. It's too short. Think about how gigantic this policy is, how dense the content is, and the discussions that need to take place. And by the way, the discussion should be taken place publicly, not behind closed doors, with special interests who are asking for certain things to be done for their own benefit.
And I would thank you for that and say, please come out to the public meetings. We have had all of our discussions in public so far. We haven't yet started with the focus group sessions because we've been concentrating on the public fora. The other issue is that we have been hearing overwhelmingly that the policy does not go far enough. So I would encourage you and the listening public and the viewing public out there to put in your comments at gov.ky/climate change policy at the link that's provided, as well as any specific concerns or questions that you may have to email climate@gov.ky. I'd also say that this consultation period, which ends on the 30th of June, would be a 60-day consultation period, and it's my understanding that most policy consultations are usually only 30 days. But if the feeling out there is that it needs to be expanded, then please, like I said, by all means, make that part of your comment to the ministry on this.
When you talk about experts holding certain opinions, let me just say one more short thing.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a doctor during the lockdown, and he explained to me why I should be vaccinated. I explained to him in scientific terms why I should not be vaccinated. His reply to me was, I agree with you, but I can't say that.
Obviously, Danny, that was one doctor's opinion, and if you look at the fact...
No, nonsense. That's how everything is disregarded. There are more than that one doctor.
There were many people against.
Very different opinions about what was taking place. And the point that I'm trying to make to you is just because professionals are not coming out and going against the people who are funding the research doesn't mean they don't hold different opinions. And those opinions need to be heard.
I think you should come along, Danny, to the meeting. And if you don't agree with, say, the polluter pays principle, then that is your opinion. I think there have been some important contrary opinions that we've heard in the meetings. There were some people saying, yeah, you're not doing enough, maybe with the cruise line industry, looking at their polluting things. And there were young people saying, you're talking and not actually taking action on things like recycling and things like that. Just going back to the pandemic, though, the vaccines, you look at that, and we had a very high vaccination rate. In countries with comparable population sizes to Cayman, like Bermuda, which had a much less highly vaccinated population, they had 4 or 5 times the amount of fatalities than us. We were looking at 20, and they were up to 120 of their population passing away. And so there's almost clear evidence that the vaccination worked. Far less people were mourning the loss of somebody who died as a result of taking a vaccine than families mourning people who died because they had the COVID-19. And even those that had the COVID-19, a lot of them, they didn't have the severity of the symptoms, partly because the vaccine lessened the impact from the virus. So if you just compare our experience to Bermuda, it seems to be pretty clear.
Who didn't want to take it and lost their jobs as a result of what about those?
Yeah, that's tough.
And then I think, your point relative to public policy, the ability for a democracy to have competing views is essential. I thank you, for sharing, and to our guests for the invitation for all to listen, to contribute, irrespective of their perspective. Maybe the adage, trust but verify. I know we have a lot
of respect for Mr. Danny, and I respect his opinions, and he's entitled to have them, and let's hear them. Come on out to our meeting.
All right. Well, Lisa, thank you. You had an hour and a half. You were thinking 60 minutes, but we're going 92. So
thank you. Yeah, we appreciate it, Dwayne. Thank you very much.
Always.
Thank you for taking those calls and for allowing us to be able
thank
to
you for, giving of yourself to accept the calls. And looking forward to your public consultation tomorrow evening.
Tomorrow evening in East End. We'll be there from 6 o'clock, but the public is invited to come out and go through the posters with us and the presentation, which will start sometime between, I would say, 6:30 and 7. Depending on how we see the flow of people coming in. We understand that people may be trying to fight some traffic to get up there to us. And then on Thursday, on the 15th, Northside at the Civic Center in Northside, same sort of time. We'll be there setting up from before 6 o'clock, so that doors open at 6, and we can invite the public in and come and have a discussion with us.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks.
Salmon, keep eating those mangoes in the sea, my friend. Or as we might say more colloquially, those mangoes along the mangroves.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, man.
Think you have a great day.
All right. Mr. Carl, what should we do, sir? Call it a day and have another day? To our listeners, please join us again tomorrow, God's willing, for more talk today. Have a wonderful afternoon. If the rain gets your hair wet, hey, that's all right. Just enjoy your hair. If it gets your scalp shiny, hey, that's good too. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Thanks. Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama.